so I'm going to call the meeting to order. We're all here, so we don't need to roll call into this. Waiting on two people. So I think that for the GSX conversation, I hope we should probably have as many people here as we can, so we'll give them a little bit more time to get here. But we do have, or in your packet was a draft PNS or Kathleen put together. So if everybody's comfortable with it, or if they have any questions for Kathleen, that's why she's here, to get that project moving.
It hasn't been shared with the other side. I know, I mean, I was waiting for you folks.
Did you guys swap?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so Andy Jefferson has...
May's meeting, but then did you swap after that?
They swapped last night.
Last night, yep.
So this is Andy Jefferson, our select board rep for the next year. Welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure being here.
Andy, this is Amber, and this is Kathleen. This is Bill. And everybody else. I assume you know Amber, right?
He knows
Bill.
Brittany.
Yeah, I know you know Bill. Okay, anyways. Is there anything that, any comments you want to make on it that's
Well, I just wanted to ask you folks about what you had talked to them about the money and how that was going to be paid. I just took a guess that they were making a deposit of $10,000, that they had made that with the RFP.
We should have to ask him.
No.
But then, they'd be making a deposit with the PNS, and then $90,000 would be delivered at the closing. So I didn't know whether you had any other understandings with them about the sort of money part of this.
Nope.
That was the one question I had. So I'll send that off to see what they have to say. And let me see, what else did we had talked about, I don't know whether you had any better understanding of the closing date. If you can see, the second page is sort of the interesting part, which is the money, and number 8, which is when the closing would be. And we've sort of set it up that they would close within 30 days of getting, sort of their financing organized with Mass Housing, and I think they were going to go through MHP as well.
So their timeline was pushed way out when we were talking to them. So I'm not, I wanted to do this because I wanted to get encumbered in case we have issues going down the road with people dissolving us with money to dissolve us. So seeing that we went through the process and we already have an agreement, I wanted to make sure it was codified. So I think if we're negotiating, we're comfortable that it's encumbered. I don't think they have any desire to actually move on this project this year.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think they said 2025 or 2026 is the funding round that they want to apply to DAC.
Okay.
So they're a long ways out of it. It would be nice if they went sooner, but we didn't really gauge the appetite that much.
Yeah. Okay.
So we did tell them that we're not in safe harbor now, but there is quite a few units that are going to be going through the CBA system. So this has to go for variance to get its waivers. So,
Yeah. Well, even if you're in safe harbor, it's always important to remember you can always apply for 40B. If it's a project that the town supports, you don't, once you reach your 10%, it's not like, oh, you can't get the 40B. In fact, you do. Lots of towns that I work with actually anticipate that in 10 years, the numbers will change, and I want to have my units on the list so that I'm protected against 40Bs, in the future. So, you sort of bank the units to a certain extent.
This should be a fairly special circumstance because it went to town meeting specifically to give the property to the trust for development. But what that means when you actually get in the room and open the public hearing with the neighborhood, that might be a different story.
All right, so then if you have, I'm waiting on time just because I know you have to start at 7. So I just thought if you have any objections, don't have any objections, then I'll send it across to them and get their comments.
Perfect.
Is that okay?
Do you need us to have an additional meeting or just wait until the July meeting?
Yeah.
You have plenty of time. Okay. You want to vote for us to do that?
Not necessarily. You took a vote to do the RFP and the purchase sale agreement is part of that. So.
Okay. That'll work. Let's see. We have an invoice. We just need a motion to Sign pay it.
Give me a minute.
Oh, do you want?
So, do you want these like one at a time?
Nope, just the total.
Well, they're for different things. They're not.
No, that's fine. Just
All right.
approve the funding and then,
I move that we approve that we pay the bills presented in the amount of $3,462.68. That sound good? Should I? Because there's 4 different things.
no, it's fine.
All right.
Outstanding bills.
As long as it's in the packet.
All right.
That's what I'm paying for. Amber, do you need to sign this or is this the treasurer's? Are you signing the stuff for?
You sign it, so I think the authorized signature is.
Okay, well, I'll
you
sign it
guys.
then.
Yeah.
Here.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Sign at the bottom. That's the rounds. Thank you. Has everybody taken a look at the meeting minutes? Anybody have any comments on them? I'll entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes of April 20th, 2023, May 4th, 2023, May 11th, 2023.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the meeting minutes are gone. Community Housing Forum flyer mailings. Well, that's part of it, though.
Yeah, that was-
Sorry. I was wondering why I didn't go. So we have the Housing Forum starting at 7. Did everybody have the opportunity to see some of the material that came from GSX concerning 1727 on Main Street? So Kathleen has been working with, I'm going to say opposing counsel, but it's not really opposing. We're not at loggerheads here. There are some things that they're looking for reimbursement on as part of the grant agreement that we're not going to pay. So, all the money can be spent pretty much at our discretion as long as it's considered an affordable housing project. The CPA money certainly is not. Now there's a good distinction between the accounts, but I think we should follow the rules set, the kind of guidelines set by the CPA anyways. So no trips, meals, entertainment, stuff like that comes with wheeling and dealing with, investors and travel, things of that nature. I don't think we should touch. And I think Kathleen also be under a similar vein.
Well, I was surprised, actually, by the draw request that we received from them. They were looking for $323,109.70. And they submitted an invoice, which I don't know whether everybody saw this, but...
You emailed this to everybody, right?
And we're going half
I got
with
that.
them on design
Yes.
cost?
Yeah, it's a 50-50. We put in 50 cents, they're supposed to put
Yeah.
in 50 cents.
And they're at what stage? SD?
And they haven't really done anything.
Right,
as far
That's
as
a
I
lot of
can
money.
tell.
Yeah.
So but unfortunately, in this situation, there were a lot of things that they had in there, like meals and hotels and all that sort of
And
stuff.
reimbursables, that's the
I'm
other-
sorry.
yeah.
But no, you're not getting reimbursed
I
for
think
that.
their architect is also them.
Yeah, well, so what happened was that when we had this draw request and there was conversation, there was phone calls back and forth and emails with Gemma, their counsel. And I set up a time for her phone call. She called me back to say, no, I can't do it then, call me later. And I did, and then I never heard from her again. But I did send her a draft, and I said that we were not excited about paying for a lot of things that are not typically associated with affordable housing, like your hotels in Salem. And so I proposed a sort of description of work and disbursement schedule. So it's in Exhibit A of the grant agreement. That's a new insertion, which would be, we would think about doing pre-closing requisition of $260,000. We would do 680,000 when they got their building permit. We would do another 680,000 when they hit the 50% completion, and then they would get 180,000 when they were done. So it's sort of a 1%, 10% holdback. I have heard nothing from Gemma about whether that's acceptable or not.
Did we say 50% of soft costs for their design team? Or
So
this is not reimbursables for the architect, this is,
the biggest outstanding piece that they've done is when they did the environmental.
yeah, that's
So
fine.
the environmental and the survey was pretty expensive. But that's the only thing that they've really done that has been a big project moving forward that we reasonably anticipated. Outside of that, they're getting into the nuts and bolts of the permit process now.
Yeah, that's great.
We're certainly
So-
not going to pay those things.
No.
Because eventually we're going to hit CPA funds, and whether they come in first or they come in last, it's going to be a nightmare for us to account for everything and say, oh, well, the Pulte money paid for this expense, CPA paid for this expense. And I don't want to
Did they
count
send
that way.
backup?
They did for the tie and bond stuff, but it was hard to see. It was scanned and.
They should have an architectural invoice and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That should be,
Even it's an intercompany, they should have.
Yeah.
should, yeah. Because
It should be easy
it should be,
for them to
they should be
find.
separated as an LLC for their development team and their architecture team, I would think.
But I think what I want to make sure we do tonight is we can sort out this stuff and schedules and stuff like that. I want to get some buy-in to the overall concept of what we're trying to accomplish there. I think there's still another solid rounds of back and forth with the actual fine-tuning of the grant agreement to make sure that we have something that we can say, okay, this is it. What they did demonstrate to us is that they had a couple people to help finance the projects. One of those folks, which the information we sent them along. So it's reasonable to expect that they're going to get LP and GP money to finish the project, which is my biggest concern with everything that's going on, especially with Pine Street, to consider. But if they have financing, it's a planning board process. If they're moving forward with everything, reasonably speaking, they should have a proposal before the planning board before the end of the year. We figure it's going to be 3 months for them to get through that and the Concom process, which should run parallel for the most part. So their idea would be to break ground next year, which is a solid investment on our part if it goes according to plan. I can't foresee any other big roadblocks, but there may be. If interest rates go up by another couple of points, it's going to be very difficult under the financing terms that they have now to make it work. But that's going to happen for everybody. So I don't know if we want to play that game too much. Everything else in the grant agreement that we talked about before, recouping the money for permit fees, water, and sewer, we're going to have to go back to the select board again and ask for it again, which I assume won't be a difficult reach, seeing that we've already set these things up. But that's how we're going to recoup most of the funds at the end of the project. Permit water, because I had thought in the original piece of it that right around 900,000 was where we would be if the project was fully done, completed. That's the money that would be recouped. So the profit piece of it, I think, is who knows what it's going to look like in 2 years. Or if they package it up and sell it, what it's going to come out to. Reasonably speaking, we should be somewhere between the 900 and 1 million mark if everything goes forward.
I mean, they have tie and bond is 37,280. And then they've got not a whole lot of, they've sent, I'll send this to you, this is sort of their, this is what they, I think, are trying to say are their architectural plans.
Yeah, that's probably
That
their,
doesn't look like any architectural drawings or anything being done, that's just their team on
that's how
meeting.
consultant invoices show up on my invoices to clients.
Yeah.
So They should have more than that, yeah. They should have, each of these should be a file. Yeah.
So in the invoicing process, Kathleen, do you want a little bit more documentation?
Well, I mean, I was surprised that I never heard back from Gemma when I said, you know, we're not paying $323,000. You've lost your mind.
They might be marking it up as well for coordination.
Yeah, I mean, these are just their business expenses. These aren't for the project. And so, I was just surprised, and I didn't hear anything back. So, I mean, I think where we are now is that we have the agreement in a form that everybody's agreed to, except they haven't agreed to what I've put in as sort of limits on how much they can take.
Right. So what is everybody here comfortable with as far as direction? And I guess taking a step back from that, is everybody comfortable with the project as it stands in the grant agreement, as it's drafted right now?
I mean, with those changes to
Well, that,
what she changed it to, yeah.
So that's what I've said.
Yeah.
You know, so and this is similar to what I've done in other projects. This is not like this is not an unusual
Yeah.
thing, and it's sort of really tied to performance.
Which percentages seem right?
One thing you could do is go ahead and sign a grant agreement and let Melissa, or whatever her name is, Michelle.
They might fight back on this. I mean, they might want the majority of the design costs are before construction starts. A lot of the time, it might be like 35% CA.
Mm-hmm.
So they might tweak it, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
you figure this is going to be a $24 million project
Yeah.
when all said and done. So soft costs are going to be right around the $3 to $4 million
Yeah.
mark.
That does
anyways.
give us more coverage, though. The percentage is broken out that way because it's not until stuff's completed in construction.
So if we vote to sign this and we're okay with it, and you kick it back and they say no, that just nulls our vote anyways. We
Yeah.
go back to the drawing board.
Right.
Because it's hard to have this negotiation where it's.
Well, we could at
just
least say
separate
that,
parties.
you know, I think what has happened is that we're at this stalemate where it's chicken and egg, and they're like, well, we're not talking to you until this grant agreement is signed, and we're not gonna get the information until the grant agreement is signed. So my thought on it would be to say, we could take a vote, we could sign this grant agreement with this schedule attached to it,
Yep.
and then, you know, tell them, yes, we've got it. And-
Okay.
And then they can say yes or no, or,
Yeah.
but we've at least done our part.
Is everybody comfortable with this? Any questions? Okay. So we don't have Ed here and we don't have Eric here. Really like the
Ed said he's on his way. That was a little while ago, though.
Okay.
Is he opening us?
It could be.
I had to double check. It's could be. Pretty sure it's there.
And then Eric will be back.
He might be battling toddlers.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of an odd time, but we gotta be here for this anyways, because
Yeah.
Fiona's making us do this housing production.
You're such a cool person.
We're getting stuck. I tell you what, we don't really have anything else here. Let's just, I can put us in recess for 15 minutes when we come. I'll open it back up. And if not, we can leave ourselves 15 minutes to do a vote before this starts. If everybody's okay with that, I'm going to put us in recess. Bill, would you mind stopping the recording? It's back in session.
Back on.
All right, so we have what we have for tonight. So I'm going to bring the grant agreement as it's presented to a vote. I'll entertain a motion to sign it as drafted with the prospect that it may come back in further negotiations. Yeah, so we'll go back beyond that. Kathleen, you're comfortable with
Yeah.
that? Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously.
Do you want a authorization to have you sign it? Okay. All right,
I am not going to be the lone signer on this one.
good.
Include authorization for Bruce to be, will be blamed if anything goes badly.
Except
That I'm getting anyways, but
the scarlet letter on each desk.
no, I would actually, I'd like this agreement with it, so everybody to sign it, because it's gonna, project itself as, if they should go with this, it's gonna be about 3 years. So a lot of us aren't gonna be there when it finishes. Or maybe. It could be that we're all still here. But I'd like to make sure it's anchored in the group that actually participated in the.
So it makes sense.
We
Okay.
can be an asset to them too, when they do the community stuff.
I think so.
Yeah. I don't think I have the correct names of the trustees. Maybe I have changed it.
Andy's here now.
Yeah, I
Did
think
you have the
there
right ones? Yeah.
I did not.
So the other thing we have is
Yeah, we-
ourselves in session because we're here in a quorum and we might be asked to respond to something we may talk amongst ourselves. So for the duration of the housing production meeting, we'll be in session and it's going to be recorded.
Appreciate everybody coming tonight. My name is Bruce Spinney. I'm the current chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. We have a few of our members here with us tonight. Part of something that the Affordable Housing Trust does is every few years we have to renew our housing production plan. So as part of that process, we have meetings like this and group sessions and things of that nature. We've hired a consultant to handle this, and she's with us tonight. She'll be handling the rest of the presentation and the workshop, essentially. This is Karen Sonnenberg.
Hello.
And we have Brittany Murphy also on the... Way off on that one. This is why I don't do last names anywhere. Always first names. And where is Andy Jefferson, who is our select board rep? And Dan Christian is right here as well. We have a couple members that will be streaming in as the night progresses. So essentially what tonight is a brief presentation and then kind of like some working groups. Also with us tonight is Fiona, our town planner, and I'm going to let her introduce herself real quick before we hand it over to Karen.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for coming. My name is Fiona, as Bruce said. I am the new town planner in Grafton. Been here about 5.5 months. Love it here. I am coordinating in close connection with Bruce, with Karen on the housing production plan. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns regarding the plan, outreach, how you can be involved, etc., please contact me. My business cards are at the table by the refreshments, and you can also just come up to me. So looking forward to hearing your feedback about this really important plan. And yeah, I'll kick it over to Karen when she's ready. But yeah, feel free to just come up, ask any questions if you need anything, let me know.
Right, can everybody hear me? I'm going to try to project. If you could coax anybody else who's coming in to sit in the front, that would be really terrific. I'm going to go through a presentation as expeditiously as possible so we can get to the real meat of the agenda this evening, which is to hear from you. The presentation is kind of my key takeaways from a pretty detailed and comprehensive housing needs assessment that is required as part of this housing production plan. I'm going to ask you to hold questions and comments till the end of the presentation. We'll have a short period of time to go through those before we break into our small group discussions. So with that, so why are we doing a housing plan? And got to say that Grafton has a fairly long history of doing housing plans. So this is a continuation of planning efforts. We're going to update the housing production plans that were completed in 2006, 2013, and 2018. The last one is expiring given 5-year terms of each of these plans. We're obtaining updated information on demographic, economic, and housing characteristics and trends. And that really sets the context for identifying priority housing needs through the indicators of needs that we get through this data analysis. Better understand the current market dynamic, and we do this through a number of different sources. Identify strategies to identify the priority needs and goals, create a roadmap for housing initiatives over the next 5 years, and gain access to housing production plan safe harbor provisions while surpassing the state 10% affordability goal. I'm going to talk about this safe harbor momentarily. So, question is, what are housing production plans? These plans are regulated by actually a subset of the Chapter 40B comprehensive permit regulations, and most people have heard of Chapter 40B. Housing production was meant to give greater local control over housing development, such that if a town prepares a housing plan that meets all the state requirements and then produces 1% of its year-round housing stock, which is the equivalent of 39 units right now for Grafton, it can get what's called certification or safe harbor, in that it does not have to, it doesn't have to approve comprehensive permit applications that it deems inappropriate as not addressing local housing needs. If it actually produces 1% of the year-round housing stock, it's a 2-year certification or safe harbor. So that's basically kind of why a lot of communities, besides good planning, are drawn to doing these housing production plans. So, question comes down to what is affordable housing? And there are different definitions of affordable housing. For example, the federal government, the state government based the definition that if a household is actually spending more than 30% of their income on housing costs, whether for home ownership or rentals, it's deemed to be living in housing that's not affordable to them, beyond their needs. The definition that we hear most about is under Chapter 40B, where a unit has to meet a number of specific requirements before it can be placed on that subsidized housing inventory, the SHI, towards meeting that 10% affordability goal under 40B. If you meet that goal, you are not susceptible to waivers of local zoning through Chapter 40B. Although a lot of communities that pass 10% still use 40B because it can be a very effective permanent tool. So we often refer to these units as the capital A affordable units. And the requirements are that the unit be subsidized, either directly or approved through a subsidizing agency. For example, a comprehensive permit application the developer submits it to an agency that will then review it, and if the developer will not be able to actually submit the application to the zoning board of appeals without that subsidizing agency go ahead. So either it's money directly, or in the case of 40Bs, the market units cross-subsidize the affordable ones, and you have to go through a subsidizing agency. They have to be deed restricted. And we're talking about in perpetuity, unless there's a justification that you can give DACD for a shorter term. They have to be affirmatively marketed, so people outside of the community are notified of the opportunity and have a chance to actually apply. And they have to be available to households earning at or below 80% of area median income, and we're talking about the Worcester area, and these income limits are they're adjusted annually by household size. And where we are now is about halfway towards that 10% affordability goal at 5%, based on 7,750 year-round housing units. 388 units, or 5%, are included in the subsidized housing inventory. Although the town does have quite a few units in the pipeline, so we expect that percentage to really move up during the next couple of years. All right. So, I gotta say, the 2023 high limits have just been issued. They're just off the press, so to speak, and they increased substantially. So while the median income, household income was not household income, area median was $114,000 in 2022. It's gone up to $122,000. An example for a household of 3, at the 80% of AMI level, it was $79,600. It's gone up to $84,250. What's certainly we're talking about housing for those who are really working and doing actually relatively well. One of the concerns is that the formulas for setting affordable rents or purchase prices are indexed to these HUD area median income limits. So when the income limits go up a lot, the rents and purchase prices go up considerably. And as we're pushing further and further, the question is, are these units actually affordable? It's like pushing the concept for some of us who have been long in the affordable housing business, as well as those in the community saying, you know, these are affordable rents. Everything's relative these days. Okay. All right. One of the things that we're going to discuss in the breakout sessions is to try to get input from you folks on local housing goals. Those goals that aren't numerical, but are aspirational, what you want the community to be, something to strive for in the years ahead. And previous plan, we included these goals. I'm just going to read through them, but think about what changes you might want. Are we missing something? Should we tweak something? Is something about the language that you're uncomfortable with? Think about that. So just going through it. Fund development of housing units that help address local housing needs and reach the state Chapter 40B affordable housing goal. Utilize trust funds wisely to leverage limited town resources. Prioritize funds to help develop affordable rental units to address Grafton's most critical local housing need and most vulnerable residents. Preserve the long-term affordability of existing housing. Create affordable homeownership opportunities for first-time buyers. Provide rental and mortgage assistance to qualifying residents. Support creation of affordable and accessible housing units to help address needs of elderly and disabled households, and to further the public understanding of affordable housing needs and community benefits. So we will be kind of touching base on goals during our small group discussions. There's a lot of analysis in the housing needs assessment, but here's just some of the major findings. Between 2010 and 2020, the population gained about 2,000 residents, up to a total population count of 19,664 residents. And you see from the curve that, you know, Grafton has steadily grown. Probably grew between 2000 and 2010, there was a significant increase. It has slowed down somewhat. And according to the 2021 census estimates from the American Community Survey, it's gone down just a tad to 19,540 units. The population projections suggest that the population will continue to grow. The Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission's they suggest forecasts that by 2030, the population will be almost 21,000. The State Data Center and the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission predict even higher population growth. There's been an increase in minority residents, actually a doubling of minority residents between 2010 and 2020, going from 2017 residents to 4,400 residents, up to 22.5% of all residents. Significant gains in non-family households. These are pretty much single individuals, certainly due to the aging of the baby boomers, but also increase in young professionals coming into the community. The population, we're losing younger residents and gaining older ones. Big increases in middle age and older residents, which I will show you. So, these columns relate to the census figures. The far left group, far left column being 2000 census, the middle one 2010, and the right column in brown being 2021. And then they're also categorized by age ranges. So under 18, 18 to 24, 25 to 34, 35 to 44, 45 to 54, 55 to 64, and over 65. I mean, certainly you see the major increase in the older age ranges. A net decrease in the young, in children under 18, but still going from about 26% of all residents to about 23%. And that's certainly declining in school enrollments are kind of reflecting some decline in children in the community. And it's surprising, once again, the 18 to 24 age range increase. I mean, certainly the town is attracting younger residents. So just kind of economic trends. Relatively high incomes. The median income, based on the 2021 census estimates, was $107,237. And this is up from $91,743 in 2010 and $56,000 in 2000. Between 2000 and 2010, there was a real shift in people coming into the community, and income really having been driven up. Also, kind of, we're talking about growing gaps in middle income and missing middle households, which we'll see momentarily. 34% of households earned more than $150,000. 10.5% of households earned less than $25,000. The median income was $52,212 for renter households, and it was $132,095 for homeowners. We're seeing increasing income disparities within the community. The average weekly wage for those who have jobs, who actually work in the town, was $1,244. And if you figure full-time all year round, that translates into an income of about $65,000. And that's 61% of the town's median household income. So numbers of people who are working in Grafton can't afford to live in Grafton. 10.5% of residents claim a disability. And that's, it's a significant population. It's a little less than the county level of 12.6% and the state level of almost 12%. Another interesting trend is increases in poverty, those living in poverty, which grew from 6.5% of all residents to 7.3% residents. And a statistic of some concern is of those households 65 years of age and older, 5.9% of these residents were living in poverty in 2010. That's increased to 14.2%. We know that there are a lot of seniors who are really struggling in Grafton, keeping up. The chart, chart on the right shows the changes from 2010 to 2021 in the distribution of incomes. And even if you can't see all the numbers, you notice what's happening on the right. The huge spikes in those earning more than $100,000 and $150,000. In order to afford the rising housing prices, you got to earn in those levels these days. So, in regards to housing growth and occupancy patterns, there was a 7.6% increase in housing units between 2010 and 2021, which is a gain of 545 units. And it's a considerable number. However, in decades before 2000, we're talking about more than 1,000 units per year. So relatively, production has fallen off. Housing growth included a 3.4% increase in owner-occupied units, but a much higher 23.2% increase in rentals, with gains of 174 units for owner-occupied units and a gain of 400 units for rental units, which really helps diversify the housing stock in the community. And as I mentioned a little earlier, there's an expected upturn in housing production given numbers of projects that have been proposed and are under review. Owner occupancy is relatively high at 71.5%. 76% of units were in single-family and detached dwellings, and low vacancy rates, 0.5% for home ownership and 4.5% for rentals. Basically, any vacancy rate lower than 5%, you're talking about very tight market conditions. And we know, talking to realtors and seeing the listings, the inventory of available housing has been very low. Okay. So we're going to move on to housing costs. The median single-family house price was $537,500 by the end of 2022, according to banker and tradesmen of the Warren Group. And that price would require an income of about $149,000. I say I just checked the data to see if there was an updated figure, and as of April 2023, the median single-family price has increased to $548,000. Prices are still going up. The median condo was $370,000 in 2022, requiring an income of about $112,500. And that has actually decreased a bit to $364,000. I should say that these calculations were based on a number of assumptions that are articulated in the plan. One being, they're not spending any more than 30% of their income on housing costs. We used a 6.5% interest rate, plugged in the property tax rate for the town, and we're talking about 80% financing, which is the typical deal that people have these days. Although the plan also analyzes costs based on a 95% financing scenario. The typical rent of a two-bedroom unit is about $1,500, requiring an income of about $70,000, much higher than median renter household income of $52,212. Not surprising that people are spending way too much of their income on housing costs. And this is based on, once again, not spending more than 30% of your income in housing costs and a $250 per month plug-in average utility bill. High affordability gaps. As prices go up, affordability gaps go up to $142,500. That's for median income earning residents. And it's based on the difference between the median price house, we're using $537,500, and what a median income earning household can afford, or about $395,000. Now, we know that the single family median price has gone up to $548,000, and the median, I get to 80% of median income is going up too. We'll get back to the next bullet. If you're looking at those making 80% area median income, the gap widens to $278,500. This is for a 3-person household. Based on the difference between the median price single-family house of $537,500 and what a household of this income level can afford of $259,000. So with the increase in the area median income limits, it goes from $79,600 to $84,250. Obviously, that higher income can afford more, but the median house price has gone up too. So it might not be a total wash, but it's probably pretty close. 24% of all Grafton households had cost burdens as they were spending more than 30% of their income on housing. 9% had what's called severe cost burdens as they were spending more than half their income on housing costs. If you're looking at those who are earning at or below 80% of area median income, the cost burdens increase to 58% of those with households with cost burdens, and 28% of those who have severe cost burdens. And then we did some calculations based on numbers of folks having cost burdens who are earning at or below 80% of area median income, and there's been a shortfall of about 1,700 units that are needed to address cost burdens. So this chart shows from 2010 to 2021 the increase of the top line in the median single-family home price, and the next line being the increase in the median household income for Grafton, and the last line being the 80% of area median income for the Worcester MSA area. And you can see as time goes by that's where the gap widens. So, based on the trends that we've articulated, other indicators of need that we've included in the housing needs assessment, you put these trends together, you come up with this scenario. The migration of new residents from eastern and southern parts of the state with higher incomes who can afford the rising housing prices has really driven up demand. People who are priced out of, say, for greater Boston area, say priced out of Needham or Weston, Grafton's looking okay, even though the prices are going so much higher than the community would probably like to see in general. Everything's relative as far as affordability. With slower production and kind of heightened demand, including the demand that occurred during the pandemic, you'd have like an imbalance between supply and demand. Basic economics 101. That imbalance between supply and demand drives up prices, which attracts developers who think, well, God, the prices are high, I can make some money here. Rising housing prices lead to wider affordability gaps, increasing cost burdens, increasing value of land in tandem with zoning makes high-priced single-family home development the highest and best use. Really need regulatory relief or subsidies in order to create greater housing affordability and diversity. Moreover, greater diversity of housing stock to address community-wide needs is reliant on greater density and some economies of scale. It's hard to do affordable housing without some economies of scale. Subsidies are competitive and limited. Lower income residents, including many longer-term residents, are struggling to remain in the community. Older residents on fixed incomes remain in their homes with little opportunity to downsize in the community and open their homes to families. Starter housing is really no longer being produced without subsidies. This is happening region-wide, but it is really the kind of summary of the dynamic that's been happening in Grafton. So basically, in the housing needs assessment, we distill certain indicators of need to come up with priority housing needs. That then, when we get to actually identifying strategies, priority strategies, we'll be looking at how those strategies will address these varying needs. First is a continued focus on rental housing based on the following considerations. One is to target needs of the most financially vulnerable residents. Rental housing is typically a bit more affordable, particularly when it's subsidized. Promote greater housing diversity, as almost 72% of Grafton's housing stock is owner-occupied, 76% in single-family detached homes. Leverage local investments, and this is important, as almost all state and federal subsidies are directed to rentals. If you're going to kind of leverage that CPA money, in order to fill those gaps and make development feasible, you need often multiple layers of subsidies to make the projects work, particularly if you want to reach some of those lower income populations. And we know from some of the data on cost burdens, et cetera, that the greatest need is actually for those earning at or below 50% of area median income. Respond to new state guidelines for MBTA communities that focuses on multifamily development. Provide opportunities for mixed income housing, including financing for lower income tiers. Provide support for greater numbers of residents over time as rentals turn over more frequently. Enhance the ability to qualify households for housing subsidies given state asset limit requirements. All units in 40B rental developments qualify for inclusion on the SHI. So to strive to get to that 10%, and even after communities get to 10%, to maintain a cushion. So here's just a bundle of indicator needs for more rental housing. About 26% of renters had incomes of less than $25,000. The median income earning renter household, $52,212 again, could afford a rent of about $1,055, lower than market rents. High rents and upfront cash requirements. Rental housing still requires some upfront cash, often first and last month's rent plus security. Low vacancy rate of 4.5%. Long waits for Grafton housing authority units. Lack of listings. If you talk to realtors, there isn't the inventory of rentals that are available. Often you find out about rentals by word of mouth. 34% of renter households had cost burdens 13% with severe cost burdens, all with incomes at or below 80% of area median income. Of particular concern are 155 renter households with incomes at or below 30% of area median income with severe cost burdens. Calculations of unmet housing needs for renters based on cost burdens shows a shortage of 504 units for low and moderate income households. Nevertheless, the plan does acknowledge that there is a need for some homeownership housing. And it should be a community priority, particularly for starter housing for families who are shut out of the housing market. As the population continues to age, it's a good thing to kind of maintain social and economic diversity and bring in families and with their children. And then also potential units for those with incomes in the 80 to 100% of area median range. CPA can support households with incomes up to 100% of area median income, offering some tiers also within the homeownership project. Offer more affordable housing alternatives to empty nesters who want to downsize. Home modifications and elevator access are often important to this population. Lend greater stability to neighborhoods as owners are perceived as more rooted with less turnover. Enable children who are raised in the community to turn and raise their own families in Grafton. Provide a preferred housing option for municipal employees and other local workers. Offer some limited buildup of equity. Only 32% of SHI units involve home ownership, but development must rely on internal subsidies and CPA to fill high affordability gaps. That's why typically home ownership projects are very small in scale, because what you need to fill the gap between the total development cost and what a target household can afford keeps widening. And in rentals, you have opportunities of layering subsidies. And for home ownership, you're pretty much talking about CPA or cross subsidies, where market units cross-subsidize affordable ones. So it's hard to go to any scale on home ownership unless there's a significant affordability. Two more needs that we wanted to kind of bring to your attention that are identified in the plan. Accommodations for special needs population are also a priority based on the following indicators of need. 2,054 residents claimed a disability, representing 10.5% of the population. As the population continues to age, we know that this percentage is going to increase over time. Limited inventory of barrier-free units, as I said, growing senior population, barriers to aging in place, no assisted living options in Grafton. SHI includes 46 units in group facilities, or that's insufficient to meet the need. Very limited housing options are available for disabled young adults who grow up in Grafton. Also need resources for improving housing conditions for qualifying households. More than half of the housing stock was built before 1980, and therefore there's a possibility that some units have lead-based paint hazards that are dangerous for young children. We still have properties that are on septic systems that have failing systems that either need some kind of improvement or replacement, and health and safety improvements for an aging population as well. All right. Next step. So, this meeting is important to provide us input on a range of questions, particularly input into the next sections of the housing plan that include housing goals and strategies. I'll be drafting the next sections of the plan and conferring with the Housing Trust, and we'll be presenting a draft housing production plan that includes all the required sections of the HPP in another community forum for further input. We'll finalize the plan, and then we have to get approvals from both the planning board and the select board before we can submit the plan to the state. Once the plan is submitted, the state technically has 90 days to review it. They've been turning around the plans pretty quickly, generally in a month's time, which has been very helpful. Okay. So we're going to I'm going to have questions and comments briefly, but I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what we're going to be discussing tonight. Within our tables, and you'll actually be able to move. Having a discussion by yourself is not very appealing. We're going to ask some basic questions to get your input. And there'll be, each table will have a facilitator, which will keep the group on track time-wise and make sure everybody in turn has their opportunity to answer the various questions. We'll have somebody in each group who's recording all the comments, particularly interested in the questions regarding actions, because each group is going to present their list of preferred or priority actions for addressing affordable housing to everybody after we complete the work in each of the breakout groups. And then everybody will have a chance to vote with sticky dots, we'll explain that a little later, on those actions that have been recommended in any of the groups that you prefer. And you can put all your green dots on, spread it out however you want, and you can, if it's something you really like, you can put all your green positive dots on one particular action. And we gave you a red dot too, and we'll go through this again, that is, if there's an action that has been proposed that you really don't like, you can stick that dot on it, and we'll be, I'll be taking back all the sheets that you prepared, and we're doing a summary of the results from the session, and that will be included as an attachment in the housing plan. The questions that you're going to be asked, as you can start thinking about it, is what does affordable housing mean to you? What is the town's greatest challenge related to preserving and producing housing affordability and diversity? Your facilitators will keep you on track with these questions. What is an appropriate aspirational housing goal to strive for in the years ahead? What are the best locations for new housing development? And what are the most important housing actions or strategies for the town to implement to address housing needs? In a nutshell, that's what we're really looking for your input on those key questions. All right. Before we actually start the discussions, were there any questions or comments about the presentation? Yes.
I'm having a hard time understanding the connection between the plan and what actually happens. And what I mean by that is the town doesn't build houses or apartments, developers do. So if you create a nice plan that says we're going to have 5,000 new apartments that are going to cost $200 a month, or even just 5,000 new apartments, but nobody's willing to build them, nothing happens. So how is this really supposed to work across the state, where each town puts together a plan and then you wait until something happens? Like, how does it turn into some action?
Some actions actually provide incentives for developers to come and to do the kind of development that you see as meaningful in the communities. Now, zoning is a powerful tool, and the plan will include recommended zoning changes. Also, you know, you have, town has certainly been effective in implementing a whole range of recommendations that were in the previous housing plans. I mean, in fact, I think almost all the recommendations, or most of the recommendations that have occurred, included in the earlier plans, were actually implemented. And then you've got developers who are really interested in the community, and you've got money. You've got CPA money to try to help leverage the kinds of projects you want. And in the plan, we include a particular party that's responsible for coordinating that action. So there is accountability within the plan itself. This stuff is not easy. I mean, it really, affordable housing is complicated, and it takes time, perseverance, painfully sometimes for perseverance. But that's a good question, but it shouldn't just lay on the shelf. And I think we've got housing trusts that really interested in continuing to move ahead.
I want to add one comment, just quickly. I think it would be helpful for future presentations on the statistics to show, when you're looking at median house price, to look at median price of existing homes versus new homes, because I think that's going to illustrate something very different.
We actually, you know, have some information in the plan on that, but thank you very much. Certainly consider it. Yeah?
Today's point too. Is there a system, or can you guys compare, you know, where we're at situationally, like with housing in our town compared to other towns, at least in like our county, region, area? Because I think it'll put in perspective, you know, our challenges, and then, you know, where we're going and where we match up with other towns in similar situations. You know, so you guys can have sort of a benchmark in terms of performance on where we're at and where you guys want to go. You know, is there something out or available?
In the plan, there is an indication of where the various nearby communities are with respect to the subsidized housing inventory, how close they are to getting to that 10%. So we have some information on that. We have comparative information on various key factors with the county, with the state, and with nearby communities to see where you go with respect to housing prices, where you go with respect to income. Those kinds of things are embedded in the plan. But the big benchmark was getting to the close to the 10% level, vis-a-vis how many units you have.
I mean, I think we go to this point too on, hey, we do a follow-up. You know, here's where we rank, right? And here's, you know, because it brings awareness even more to our situation here in Grafton as well. So.
You know what I will do for the next public forum is I'll include that chart that shows Grafton vis-a-vis other nearby communities. Okay? We'll make sure to do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Do you have any figures from the most recent census as to how many retired people we have in town?
You know, there are census estimates on that, but I don't have that in the plan, but I can make a note and include that.
A few years ago, in regard to another issue that came up in town, I got some numbers from the State Retirement Board, the State Teachers Retirement Board, and Worcester County as to the number of Grafton residents who were receiving retirement checks.
Oh, we have, yeah.
So I think
that's the census information.
The Housing Trust needs to be aware of the fact that if we're really lucky, we might get a 3% cost of living this year. But the town is losing a lot of retired town and state employees and teachers. In fact, I think the teachers are probably the first group that's packing their bags and leaving.
Karen?
Yeah.
If I can address that, it's right here in the housing production plan, page 9. We are well aware of that. I just want to address this. Bullet point, final bullet point, page 9. Considerable increases in older middle-aged residents. Despite some fluctuations over the decades, there's been a significant net increase in those older middle-aged adults population experienced a total increase of 113% over 4 years. While many of these households are likely long-term residents, the increase suggests a considerable number of newcomers as well. So we also recognize that these are people that are aging in place as their property values increase, so do the taxes, and it makes the cost burden that much more acute.
Yeah.
And on page 10 of the housing production plan, there's also a chart tabling out 1980, 1990, 2021, the increase of people. Even over the age of 85, we have presently 377 residents. Ages 75 to 84, 728 residents. And here's the bigger nut, 65 to 74, 1,526 residents. 55 to 64, 26 to 28. So you can see probably about 33% of our population is retirement age.
Is that online then?
This is going to be online once this housing production plan that Karen's talking about is finished.
Thank you.
There's a lot of information. One more question, and then we're going to
Going back to the numbers you quoted for between 2010 and 2020 for the growth in households, you quoted 174 increase in owner-occupied and 402 in rental. Am I correct in assuming this is independent of the type of unit? So the owner-occupied could be both single-family detached and condos?
Correct.
The rentals are all the way from single-family detached through multifamily apartments.
Correct.
What's interesting about that is that almost all of the new construction during that period is detached single-family. So what that tells me is that a lot of the growth in housing is not people buying and living in their single-family homes. It's investors buying single-family homes and renting them out. That says something. I'm not sure what.
No,
it says
it's
something.
not investor because it's got to be owner-occupied.
Well, here, what I mean is investors
Oh,
own
the
it
increase in
and
rentals.
rent it out.
Right,
So
the increase in rentals.
the increase of
Some of that.
402 rental units is almost all investors buying and renting out single-family homes.
You know, there's also, I mean, there are other reasons for it. For example, there's been a loss in two, three, and 4 unit dwellings.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them were owner-occupied before, and in fact, some of them were affordable units in the community, and they have been converted to...
For more than one reason,
right,
but
yeah.
I think the key observation here is that increase in rental units is not an increase in apartments.
Some of it is. And you actually have, you see from 2010 to 2021, even before, you show the type of unit and the change in numbers, so you can actually track where that kind of growth or loss occurred.
Yeah, the data.
But you're right, I mean, it's...
The data I have on that, it's almost entirely single-family detached. Not many multifamily units have been built in the
88% of the growth actually occurred in single-family.
So,
If there are any other questions, just, let me know as we go into discussion groups, and I'll answer them, or after the meeting, I'm happy to address any questions and comments. So now, we're going to get going. Maybe we can join. You want to move over and, yes?
Karen, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Because groups seem to be a little bit self-selecting here. Can we do it like we did in gym class in elementary school, just count off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? And see?
No, you're already in groups, so you don't need to make...
Yeah, but I know. Karen, these people from the Affordable Housing Trust, I don't need to sit next to them. We all know each other.
We are very flexible here. We can easily accommodate that. So let's do that.
Okay, let's go. I'm gonna grab a food chart. Yeah. Okay.
It makes me feel so much better. I feel so much better.
Bruce, are you joining us, or?
Before I got there instead of decimated. And I agree, we're going to use those people
Lynn, she deserves it.
You're not ready with that big marker, are you?
Read the list here. Number 1, community education and outreach. And then number 2 is sort of generally speaking, reviewing existing zoning with some specific ideas. But the basic idea would be to look at the existing zoning and any other development incentives that we might have to create incentives for the development of the housing that's going to meet the needs that the housing production plan identifies. Right now, not to get into too much detail, but we basically, our zoning currently incentivizes the development of large single-family detached homes and disincentivizes everything else. So that's what the idea is, that we want to look at not disincentivizing the single-family homes, but incentivizing what we're currently lacking. For example, allowing accessory dwelling units by right. Right now, we kind of disincentivize that. Allowing tiny houses, it's become kind of a popular idea. Duplexes, allowed everywhere by right. Currently, we treat duplexes as evil. More incentives for simplifying the development process for multifamily. And I'm sure there are quite a few others. I'm not going to try to exhaustively enumerate all the possibilities. The idea here is to look for those possibilities for incentivizing the development that the HPP identifies as needed. So that's it.
You're not quite. We want to have deeper affordability thresholds for incoming development, so we're hitting, the 30% AMIs, the 50s, the 60%, rather than continuously building just to meet the 80% AMI, which, as we saw from Karen's presentation, that you need to make $70,000 just to meet that price range. That is ridiculous. And then we also wanted to encourage, we kind of looped this together, developments that are 100% affordable. So not just, the 20%, the 25%, having a full affordability in new developments. Our second action was more options. So seniors and young people are not competing by increasing density, having more dense options, modifying our zoning to accommodate dense development, and increasing the supply so that folks of variety of ages can actually live here. And our third action was improving communication methods. So needing to communicate better is a big piece and a kind of a recurring trend that we heard that our group was speaking to. So, putting the information about available affordable units at the forefront of people's minds, bringing the information to them so that the folks who are not just already engaged in local government are the only ones who know. So bringing information to people, not just using, regular social media outlets, et cetera, the same kind of thresholds, because folks, the more they know, the more informed they can be, and the more they'll be able to speak up and actually make a difference. So those are our actions in a nutshell. Unless anyone else wants to add.
Actions. Focus on affordability for seniors. Incentivize starter homes. And find ways to reduce the tax burden for senior citizens.
Higher density residential zones near resources like they can walk to, transit, shops, and zoning like 2-3 family dwellings where you can have an income property and an in-law suite so your mother-in-law could move in with you. Maybe you don't want her to, who knows. Local community buy-in, I think this one is big for me. I think there's a stigma. This might be an education piece, but there's a stigma that all affordable housing is going to look terrible and it's not going to fit into the context. It's going to look out of place. So I think educating people that doesn't have to be, getting people's buy-in, doing shreds with community members, making them feel heard, big piece to this. Developer requirements and incentives, so maybe there is a requirement for all new things to have 10% affordable. Maybe there's more incentives for have more. Ensure affordable housing going to the right people, so community members living in the town, municipal workers, people that are actually at a lower AMI than 80%, disability, seniors, and then this was another one we thought about a little bit outside the box, but working with the Grafton Housing Authority or the town to redevelop existing housing at a higher density. Another option there. And there's funds that the Grafton Housing Authority has as well, separate from other funds we can get. So just some things that we thought about.
So a lot of ours are sort of the same as what you guys are all saying. I think we focus more on the financial and legal obstacles to the creation of housing. Land costs are high, so we want to be able to incentivize developers to be able to perform 40Bs, perhaps by increasing the amount of funds that go from the CPA to the Affordable Housing Trust, so the Affordable Housing Trust can help incentivize and underwrite the developments. Primarily, I think we all talked on, from one degree to another, about being able to create as-of-right housing and ending exclusionary zoning, ending the sort of zoning that prevents people from building multifamily housing as of right. We talked a lot about, outside of that, creating additional overlay districts to basically perform the same function. If you're not going to end single-family zoning, then at least, the very least, what you could do is create overlay districts that allow that sort of zoning, as we're doing in various parts of town now. We talked a lot about not necessarily buy-in from the general community, but buy-in from the people who are in positions of authority, like the ZBA. How many times has a developer been caught up in the ZBA for years and years at a time, which creates additional costs and barriers to construction of housing, which delays or inevitably kills projects altogether. What else did we talk about? And I had just start sending more town-owned land to the trust. You can't build housing without the land. So if you can get the land to an entity that is designed to create affordable housing, then you're one half of the way there, as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, that was us.
The top two that we had come up with were similarly zoning changes and incentivizing multifamily structures, things like in-law apartments, duplexes, mixed-use small business, also outreach and community education being another big point. Research. Some of the other ones were researching grant opportunities for the remediation of vacant or contaminated land, as we know that to be kind of a big upfront cost. Also, partnering with nonprofits, or whether the town should, look into purchasing some of these properties and attempting to install their own affordable housing themselves.
Green sticky dots, and you can vote on those actions that you think should be the town's greatest priorities. You can put all 6 on one that you really love, or distribute them as you'd like. If there's particular action that you really oppose, you can stick that one red dot on that particular action. I'm going to be accumulating all of these sheets and bring them back and then summarize them. Let me just say that we know that your time is valuable, and really happy that everybody was here tonight, and very important input into this planning process. And thank you very much. So after your vote, you're excused.